Dawn breaks over the forests of the Ardennes. It is May 10th, 1940. The world still believes the Western Front will hold, that France's Maginot Line, the pride of Europe's defences, will stop any new German war. But on this morning, everything changes. Engines roar beneath a pale sky. Columns of panzers move through the mist, steel beasts grinding over narrow forest roads. Soldiers stand on half tracks, faces hard, eyes forward. They know something the world does not, that in the next 6 weeks, the fate of Europe will be rewritten. For months, war had been quiet. After Poland fell in 1939, the Western Front went still. Newspapers called it the phony war. British and French soldiers waited in bunkers, smoking, writing letters home, staring out at silent fields. No one imagined the storm that was coming. But Hitler's Germany had been planning in silence. The plan, Fall Gelb, Case Yellow, a bold strike through the Low Countries and into France, but not the way anyone expected. Instead of attacking the strongest defences, the Germans would move through the one place the Allies thought impossible, the dense, winding Ardennes forest. It was a gamble so daring it bordered on madness, but Hitler believed in speed, he believed in shock, and he believed that Europe could be taken before the world could react. At 4:35 a.m., the sky lights up. German paratroopers drop into the Netherlands and Belgium. Within minutes, bridges fall, airfields are seized, and the first bombs strike Allied cities. The thunder of invasion echoes across northern Europe. Across the border, British and French units scramble to respond. They move toward Belgium, believing the main attack will come there, just as in 1914. But this time, the Germans are not repeating history. They are rewriting it. In Berlin, Hitler stands over a war map, eyes burning with anticipation. This, he tells his generals, is the decisive campaign. France will fall like a rotten tree. No one in the room dares to disagree. Far to the west, in the Belgian fortress of Eben-Emael, 1,200 soldiers guard one of Europe's most formidable defences, a modern fortress meant to hold any German advance. But at 4:25 a.m., the sky above them shimmers with shadows. Silent gliders, carrying elite German assault teams, land directly on the fort's roof. Within minutes, shaped charges blast open turrets. In 30 minutes, a fortress thought impregnable is silenced. The world is stunned. Newspapers will call it the death of old warfare. The Germans have unleashed a new kind of war. Blitzkrieg. Lightning war. Fast, coordinated, merciless. Tanks, infantry, and aircraft working as one machine. In the next 48 hours, the German spearhead surges through the Ardennes. 45 divisions, more than 130,000 vehicles, and 1,200 tanks pushing through narrow forest roads. Allied scouts dismiss reports of armoured columns in the woods. They believe it's impossible. But by May 12th, the lead German units emerge from the trees, staring down the Meuse River near the French town of Sedan. It's here that the fate of France will be decided. The French High Command, convinced the Ardennes cannot support a major offensive, has stationed only second-rate divisions at Sedan. Reservists, under-equipped, underprepared. When German dive bombers, the screaming Ju-87 Stukas, appear over the Meuse on May 13th, their sirens echo like banshees. The sky becomes a howl of steel and fire. For 8 hours, the Luftwaffe bombards French positions without pause. Trenches collapse. Soldiers flee in panic. Command lines break. By nightfall, German engineers are building pontoon bridges across the river. By dawn, tanks are rolling through. The French defence has collapsed. A single day, one river, and the German army has broken the back of France's first line of defence. Behind them, more divisions pour through the breach. The Blitzkrieg is no longer a tactic, it is a storm. By May 15th, French Prime Minister Paul Reynaud calls London in despair. He speaks to Winston Churchill, newly appointed as Britain's Prime Minister. "My generals are defeated," Reynaud says. "The battle is lost." Churchill, stunned, asks, "Surely it cannot yet be so?" Reynaud answers, "The front is collapsing everywhere." For the second time in a generation, France faces German occupation. The German army moves with breathtaking speed. Town after town falls. Dinant, Charleville, Amiens. In barely 10 days, the panzers reach the Channel coast. The entire Allied northern flank is trapped in a vast pocket. More than 400,000 Allied troops, British, French, Belgian, are surrounded. Their only escape, the port of Dunkirk. The roads to Dunkirk are chaos. Refugees clog the paths, soldiers march through smoke and fire. Luftwaffe bombers strafe anything that moves. Yet amidst the destruction, something extraordinary happens. On May 26th, the British launch Operation Dynamo, the desperate evacuation from Dunkirk. For 9 days, under constant air attack, an armada of destroyers, merchant ships and fishing boats crosses the English Channel. From naval officers to volunteer civilians, thousands risk their lives to bring the soldiers home. By June the 4th, against all odds, over 338,000 men are saved. Hitler watches from afar, furious but convinced it doesn't matter. France is already finished. While the world celebrates Dunkirk as a miracle, Hitler prepares his final strike. The German armies pivot south. This is full rot. Case read. The destruction of the remaining French army. The offensive begins June 5th. German panzers roll like a tide. Amiens, Rouen, Paris. The French army, exhausted, retreats. Communication is shattered. The government flees to Bordeaux. On June the 10th, Italy joins the war on Germany's side. A final blow to French morale. By June 14th, German troops march into Paris. The City of Light falls without a fight. The Eiffel Tower stands untouched, but the tricolour no longer flies above it. Civilians weep as German columns move through the boulevards. French police stand silent. The capital of Western Europe has fallen. Hitler visits Paris a few days later, walking through the Arc de Triomphe, visiting Napoleon's tomb. He tells his aide, "This is the greatest moment of my life." He is right. For now. June 22nd, 1940. In a forest clearing at Compiègne, in the same railcar where Germany surrendered in 1918, France signs its armistice. Hitler sits in silence as the terms are read aloud. For him, it is not just victory, it is vengeance. The humiliation of World War I is avenged in a single, cruel gesture. France is divided in two. The north, occupied by Germany, the south, ruled by the collaborationist Vichy government. In 6 weeks, one of the world's greatest military powers has fallen. Europe has fallen silent. From the Channel to the Pyrenees, German banners hang over capitals that once stood proud. Belgium, surrendered. The Netherlands, occupied. France, divided and broken. In less than 2 months, Adolf Hitler has conquered Western Europe. For the first time since Napoleon, one man controls the destiny of an entire continent. Across Germany, the mood is euphoric. Crowds fill the streets. Newspapers declare a new era of German greatness. Hitler is hailed as the greatest commander of all time. In Berlin, parades of tanks roll beneath the Brandenburg Gate. The same soldiers who only a year ago marched into Poland now return as the masters of Europe. For Hitler, it is vindication. Proof that his vision of blitzkrieg works. Proof that the world will bend to his will. But for the rest of the world, it is a nightmare. In London, the news strikes like thunder. France, gone. The British Expeditionary Force, saved, yes, but stripped of its weapons, its tanks, its artillery. Britain now stands alone. In the early hours of June 18, 1940, Winston Churchill steps before Parliament. His voice is calm but heavy. What General Wagan has called the Battle of France is over. I expect that the Battle of Britain is about to begin. He pauses. Upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization. If we fail, the whole world will sink into the abyss of a new dark age. Outside, the streets of London are tense but defiant. Men queue to enlist. Women dig trenches in Hyde Park. Children are evacuated to the countryside. Britain is bracing for invasion. Across the Channel, Hitler's generals draft plans for Unternehmen Seelover, Operation Sealion. The goal? Invade Britain by sea once the Luftwaffe destroys the Royal Air Force. German bombers gather in northern France, 600 aircraft ready to strike. In ports from Calais to Boulogne, invasion barges are prepared. The British call it the Summer of Fear. But Hitler hesitates. He offers Britain peace. Under German dominance, the offer is rejected. Churchill refuses to yield. So, on July 10, 1940, the skies over southern England ignite. The Battle of Britain begins. It starts small, German reconnaissance planes probing the coast. Then come the massed raids, waves of Heinkel and Dornier bombers escorted by Messerschmitt fighters. The Luftwaffe expects the British air defence to collapse in days. Instead, they encounter something new, an unseen weapon, radar. Across the southern coast of England, tall steel towers pulse invisible signals into the sky. They detect enemy formations long before they reach the coast. For the first time in history, a nation fights a battle in the air, guided by technology. The Royal Air Force, outnumbered 3-1, scrambles into the sky. Squadrons of Hurricanes and Spitfires twist and dive through clouds, intercepting the bombers before they reach their targets. The voices of young pilots fill the airwaves, barely 20 years old, flying for survival. One is heard saying, "There's so many of them. God help us." The battle becomes daily rhythm, takeoff at dawn, combat by noon, blackout by night. Londoners watch vapour trails crisscrossing above like scars across heaven. In Berlin, Hitler waits for news of Britain's collapse, but the reports from the front are not what he expected. Day after day, the Luftwaffe fails to crush the RAF. German losses mount. On August 13th, Adlertag, Eagle Day, the Luftwaffe launches its largest assault. Over 1,400 aircraft roar toward England. British radar picks them up instantly. Squadrons scramble. Dogfights erupt from Dover to Portsmouth. By sunset, the sky is littered with burning wrecks. The Germans lose 47 planes. The British, 13. The numbers tell the story. The invincible blitzkrieg machine is bleeding. As the weeks drag on, Hitler grows impatient. He orders a new target, not airfields, but cities. He wants to break British morale. On September the 7th, 1940, London burns. 600 bombers roar overhead, dropping 1,000 tons of explosives. The docks at East End vanish in fire. Families huddle in the underground as dust and flame fill the night. A child's voice is heard amid the chaos. "Mum, is this the end of the world?" Night after night, the blitz continues. London, Coventry, Liverpool, Birmingham, each city taking its turn under the storm. And yet, Britain does not fall. Factories keep running. Fire crews pull survivors from rubble. Churchill visits the bombed streets, cigar in hand, defiantly raising his hat to cheering crowds. He says quietly to an aide, "They will never break the spirit of London." In Germany, frustration turns to fury. The Luftwaffe cannot destroy the RAF. The Royal Navy still controls the seas. The invasion barges remain unused. By October 31st, 1940, the Battle of Britain is over. Germany has suffered 1,700 aircraft lost, the RAF 900. But Britain still stands. Hitler's plan to invade has failed. For the first time in the war, the German war machine has been stopped. Churchill speaks again before Parliament. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. The world listens. The myth of German invincibility is broken. But while Britain celebrates, the rest of Europe groans under occupation. From Oslo to Paris, German flags hang heavy over city halls. Gestapo agents move through the night. Resistance networks form in secret, coded messages, hidden radios, whispered meetings in cellars. Ordinary people begin to fight back. In France, the first resistance leaflets appear. France has lost a battle, but France has not lost the war. In Poland, underground newspapers print news of hope. In Belgium and Norway, sabotage begins. Germany's empire stretches wider than ever, but already cracks are forming. In the east, Stalin watches. The Soviet Union and Germany are still bound by the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, their uneasy alliance of convenience. But both sides know it will not last. Hitler sees communism as his next enemy. In secret, his generals begin drawing up plans for an even greater invasion, one that will dwarf everything before it. Operation Barbarossa. But that lies ahead. For now, the year 1940 ends with Europe under Nazi rule and the world holding its breath. Germany has shocked the world, conquered the continent, and rewritten the rules of modern war. But the seeds of its eventual defeat have already been planted. Continues in part 3, where we close the hour with the global consequences of 1940, Hitler at the peak of his power, America's reaction, the tightening grip on occupied Europe, and the dark path that leads toward 1941. By the winter of 1940, Europe no longer breathes freely. A single regime controls the map from the Arctic Circle to the Mediterranean. Flags bearing the black swastika hang from city halls in Amsterdam, Brussels, and Paris. Trains roll west carrying German troops and east carrying coal, grain, and prisoners. The new order Hitler promised is taking shape, one built on fear. In Berlin, Hitler moves into the Grand Chancellery with the calm satisfaction of a gambler who has won everything. He dictates orders surrounded by maps. Blue pins for the Wehrmacht, red for the conquered. He tells his generals, "England is finished. The empire will soon crumble." His eyes turn toward the Atlantic, toward the Soviet Union, toward destiny itself. But beneath the triumph, cracks form. In the occupied countries, the war has not ended. It has changed shape. In Paris, ration lines stretch for blocks. German patrols march through the Place de la Concorde. Cafes whisper, posters announce curfews. In the cellars of the Sorbonne, students begin to print leaflets. Liberté ne meurt jamais. Freedom never dies. In Norway, a teacher refuses to raise his arm in salute. He is taken away. In Belgium, saboteurs derail a train carrying fuel to the front. In the Netherlands, Jews are forced to register, marked by yellow stars. By year's end, the machinery of occupation is in full motion. Gestapo offices hum with the sound of typewriters. Resistance cells multiply in silence, and across every border, fear spreads faster than any army. Meanwhile, Britain rebuilds in darkness. The Blitz still pounds London nightly. Yet buses run, factories hum, and searchlights comb the skies. From rooftops, volunteers stand watch with buckets of sand and courage. Children sleep in underground tunnels, their lullaby the thud of distant bombs. And through it all, Churchill's voice crackles on the radio. This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is, perhaps, the end of the beginning. The people believe him. Across the Atlantic, America watches. Isolationist at first, the United States cannot ignore what 1940 has unleashed. President Franklin D. Roosevelt calls it the most serious crisis in modern civilization. He begins rearming in secret. Factories in Detroit and Pittsburgh roar back to life, turning out tanks and aircraft marked for Britain. The Lend-Lease Act will soon follow. The first lifeline from the New World to the Old. By the end of 1940, American ships carry food, weapons, and hope across a storm-filled Atlantic. The United States has not yet entered the war, but the tide of neutrality is shifting. In Berlin, Hitler misreads it all. He believes America will stay out, believes Britain is a dying empire clinging to rocks, believes the Soviet Union can be crushed in months. His generals warn him of overreach. He silences them. Providence, he says, has chosen me for this task. He sees destiny not in caution, but in conquest. The German war machine grows relentless. Factories in the Ruhr work around the clock. Every victory feeds another. Tens of thousands of forced labourers are dragged from occupied territories to build weapons for the Reich. Propaganda films show smiling workers, but in reality, Europe is chained to the furnaces of German industry. By December 1940, plans for the next campaign are already on Hitler's desk. Directive 21, Operation Barbarossa. An invasion of the Soviet Union scheduled for the coming summer, the largest in history. He tells his staff, "We have one last enemy to destroy." Few realize what that means. Not just another campaign, but the beginning of a war that will engulf the world. Yet 1940 is not only the story of conquests and armies, it is the story of ordinary lives caught in history's storm. In the French countryside, a mother hides her son's uniform under the floorboards. In Warsaw, a rabbi buries sacred scrolls beneath the synagogue. In London, a nurse kneels beside a stretcher, whispering to a boy covered in dust, "You're safe now, love. You're safe." Each small act of courage defies the terror that covers the continent. Each moment of humanity becomes a quiet victory against tyranny. As the year closes, snow falls over Europe, over the ruins of Dunkirk, over the blackened streets of Coventry, over the silent statues of Paris. Church bells ring on Christmas morning, faint beneath the distant drone of aircraft. The world holds its breath, because everyone knows the storm has only begun. In that single year, 1940, Hitler had achieved what seemed impossible. He conquered the Low Countries and France in 6 weeks. He humbled Europe's great armies. He forced Britain to fight for its very existence. But his triumph carried within it the seeds of ruin. By overreaching, by believing in his own legend, he set Germany on a path that would lead to the frozen fields of Russia, to the deserts of North Africa, and eventually to total collapse. Historians would later call 1940 the hinge of fate, the year when the war could have ended in German victory, but instead turned toward a longer, bloodier path. As the camera of history pulls back, imagine Europe from the sky. A continent in shadow, cities burning, armies on the move. Across that darkened map, one island still glows with light. Britain, scarred but unbroken. It is from that island that the long fight to reclaim freedom will begin. The year 1940 began with silence. It ended with the world on fire. It was the year when lightning war shocked the world, when democracy stood alone, when millions felt the first chill of a new dark age. But it was also the year that proved something greater, that even in the darkest night, defiance can survive.